One day, a young man, Sagara Yoshiharu, from modern Japan, finds himself in the middle of the Japanese feudal era, where, in order to save his life, a random man gets shot down in the middle of that raging battlefield. This man was the legendary Japanese feudal, Lord Hideyoshi Toyotomi, and with his last breath, Toyotomi tells Yoshiharu to help the lord of the Oda clan. Moments later, Yoshiharu finds a pretty girl being attacked by some samurai, and he ends up saving her with the help of his smartphone. The guy buys enough time for the girl's allies to arrive, and while thanking Yoshiharu, the girl introduces herself as the same head of the Oda clan. Yoshiharu was a sucker for Japanese history, specifically the Sengoku era, and the one thing that surprised them the most was that the legendary conqueror Oda Nobunaga he knew was a girl in this world, calling herself Oda Nobuna. Yoshiharu tried to explain how he is from modern Japan 450 years in the future, but everyone just assumed that he is crazy. In this alternate world, famous historical warlords and generals existed as cute girls, and after meeting up with a few of these warlords, Yoshiharu made up his mind that since there is no way for him to get back home, the only logical thing for him to do now would be to take Toyotomi's place and assist Nobuna in her journey to conquer Japan. Around the same time, there was some heat between the Oda clan and the Lord of Mino, Dosan Saito. Yoshiharu was recruited by Nobuna under the nickname Monkey, or in Japanese, Saru. While Nobuna was having a meeting with her generals for the upcoming discussion, Saru surprises everyone with his foreknowledge. Saru knew all this due to his love for historical video games, and he even used his knowledge to save Nobuna from an ambush set by Dosan's tactician Akechi Mitsuhide. With Saru's help, Nobuna makes it to Dosan's place for a meeting where they go back and forth about the ownership of Mino's territory. Everything was going normal until Saru remembers more of the history, and he convinces Dosan of his foreknowledge by revealing what's on the old man's mind. Saru convinces Dosan to give the Mino territory to Nobuna in the future, and he helps form an alliance between the Owari and Mino provinces. For his great performance, Saru is praised by Nobuna, and he becomes a trusted ally of the Oda clan, ready to help Nobuna in her conquest of Japan. Despite the acknowledgement from Nobuna, Saru was still a mere foot soldier, and people of his rank didn't have the luxury to eat the best food. Saru was getting by eating leaves when General Katsui arrived to take him to Nobuna. While the two were on the way, Nobuna's younger brother Nobukatsu notices Saru, and he starts making fun of his sister's choice for monkeys. Saru was cool with being called a monkey, but as Nobukatsu started disrespecting Nobuna, our guy ended up hitting him. Saru was just trying to scold the kid, but things go wrong and Nobukatsu starts demanding Saru's head. This was quite a big problem, as Nobukatsu would start another rebellion if his request is not fulfilled, and that would ultimately hinder Owari from staying united. Despite his screw-up, Nobuna didn't want to kill Saru, so he is told to buy 8,000 koku of rice with only 3,000 kan at his disposal if he wishes to climb the ladders of the hierarchy. Oh, and for those who don't know, koku and kan are traditional Japanese units, by the way. Saru takes the challenge gladly, and he starts using the strategies he learned in video games to multiply his money. Saru's schemes worked so well with the help of General Inuchiyo and Goemon that he almost forgot to buy the rice. Saru sends the girls to buy the rice, and with the deadline coming close, Nobuna joins him to decide his fate. As Saru asked Nobuna to wait for some time, she started explaining her theories about the globe, and since Saru already knew some geography, he started telling her about all the things she was right about. Nobuna was surprised at how Saru was the only one who didn't call her crazy, but this developing closeness made it harder for Nobuna to actually cut Saru's head off. Nobuna was trying to act logically and do her duty when Inuchiyo and Goemon arrive and reveal that Saru has succeeded in buying 30,000 koku of rice instead of the required 8,000. Nobuna felt relief as she didn't have to decapitate Saru now, but the problems were not over as Nobukatsu rebelled regardless. Luckily for Nobuna, she had Saru on her side, and he used some more tricks up his sleeve to pressure Nobukatsu into giving up. And with the weak-willed Nobukatsu captured, it was time for Nobuna to announce his punishment. Nobuna had decided to kill her brother just like it was in the original history of Japan. But to save Nobuna from becoming a monster like Nobunaga, Saru speaks up and convinces her into sparing her brother. The decision turns out to be great when Nobukatsu swears loyalty to his sister under the new name Nobami, and with the rest of the rebellion also being forgiven, Saru just helped Nobuna again, reuniting the Owari under her name. Later on the same night, Nobuna formally thanks Saru for his service, and she makes him kiss her hand to swear loyalty and accept Nobuna as his master. While Nobuna was having a peaceful time in Owari, Dosan didn't have the same luxury in the land of Mino. Dosan's alliance with the Owari region didn't take his son Yoshitatsu's opinion into consideration, and that led to some generals starting a rebellion alongside Yoshitatsu. The news reaches Nobuna, and after a brief meeting, the group comes to the conclusion that they cannot send forces to save Dosan, or else the Owari region will be under attack by the forces of Imagawa. The reality was a bit harsh for Nobuna, and in order to comfort her, Saru approached her in her room. Nobuna opens up to Saru, and she reveals how for some reason everything she ever loved ends up leaving her. After this sentimental moment comes to a conclusion, the region is visited by Nagamasa Asai. Nagamasa was here to form an alliance with Nobuna so she can go and help Dosan, but in return, he demanded that Nobuna marry him. Nobuna might have considered the offer at first, but her interest completely dies when Nagamasa states that he wants to marry Nobuna purely for politics and not love. Dosan's army was getting defeated at an alarming rate, so Nobuna's generals sat down to discuss this marriage. The topic gets Saru a bit too emotional, and he almost starts a war against the Asai clan. In the end, the Oda clan turns Nagamasa's offer down, but that doesn't make the situation any better, as now Akechi arrives in Owari, looking for a place where Dosan's daughter can stay. This was a big problem, as it meant that the old man was prepared to die in war, but Saru didn't want things to end like this, so he heads over to rescue Dosan, having only Goemon with him. Saru makes it to the battlefield just fine, but after reaching Dosan, the old man starts refusing to come back. Saru succeeds in convincing Dosan about the value his life holds, but things weren't smooth at all, as they had to pass through raining fire arrows to make it back to the shore. Yoshiharu's team was in trouble even after making it back to the shore, but to their luck, Nobuna arrived with half of her army. Nobuna had saved Dosan and her monkey for the time being, but a bigger problem was awaiting them back at home, as Imagawa was on her way to invade Owari. Nobuna and the team are informed about the whopping 25,000 troops approaching their borders from all directions, and while Saru was looking forward to a historically famous battle, Nobuna had lost all hope in conquering Japan. Saru tries to encourage Nobuna into fighting back, but she gets all upset and goes as far as firing Saru from his position. Pretty soon, the enemies manage to make it to a few more of Owari's castles. The whole Oda clan was stuck in a sort of downward spiral, and even Saru was sitting alone, feeling bad about the problems he had caused for Nobuna. The guy was sulking when Dosan came across him, and he took Saru outside to show him that all hope was not lost yet. The old man helps Saru in gaining confidence, and he swears to help Nobuna just like he helped Dosan. Yoshiharu was heading for Imagawa's camp, and he was joined by Inochiyo, Goemon, and a few other villagers. Together, Saru leads the group to locate Imagawa and trigger the famous Battle of Okehazama. But things get a bit tough when Yoshiharu finds out that the history he knew wasn't all that much accurate. The battlefield Saru had heard of turns out to be a mountain instead, but with some help from Nobusumi, Saru and company managed to locate the camp. All that was left now was to tell Nobuna about it, but the situation gets chaotic when a ninja named Hanzo Hattori attacks Saru. Saru was no match for a trained ninja, so he somehow tries to tell Hanzo that his master Lady Motoyasu wouldn't need to serve Imagawa Yoshimoto if the Oda clan wins the war. Saru almost dies during the confrontation, but with some luck, he makes it to Nobuna, where he tells her about Imagawa's base camp after apologizing. Saru is allowed back on the team now, and Nobuna straight up gathers her troops to attack Imagawa's base camp. The Yoshimoto clan was not expecting this at all, and with the help of Saru's wit, the girls managed to capture Imagawa. After the majority of Imagawa's guards were taken down, Katsuie was willing to kill her, but Saru jumps in to stop her and sort of seduces Imagawa into surrendering. With their leader's surrender, the Yoshimoto forces scattered, and Saru's courageous moves helped Oda Nobuna reign supreme in a seemingly lost cause. Defeating the Yoshimoto clan didn't grant Nobuna too much territory, so in order to expand their borders, the next goal was to take over Mino. Mino was still under the rule of Dosan's son, Yoshitatsu, but despite many efforts, Nobuna wasn't able to take the main castle back. After Nobuna starts getting frustrated from failing, Saru opens his mouth and reveals that the only way to take back Mino would be to recruit their famous strategist Hanbei Takenaka. Nobuna didn't have much hope that this would work, but Saru insisted on going, and Dosan told Akechi to accompany him. Saru also grabbed a couple more generals, and he headed straight over to Hanbei's possible location. Inside, they come across Nagamasa, who was also here for the exact same reason. As both guys wanted to have Nobuna for themselves, they start a little duel with the supposed Hanbei. After the guys run out of steam due to Hanbei's tricks, Inuchiyo realizes something and she cuts down a fake wall in the room to reveal a little girl hiding behind. The girl reveals herself as the real genius Hanbei, and she explains how she is forced to stay with Yoshitatsu as he was holding her uncle hostage. Saru feels bad for the little girl, so he offers to help her. Saru tells Goemon to take the others with her and free the uncle while he and Hanbei buy time for them to get the job done. According to the plan, Hanbei revealed her real identity to Yoshitatsu as well, and despite Saru's opposition, he announced that he wants to take Hanbei as his concubine. Around the same time, Goemon reports back that Hanbei's uncle was safe, so she goes wild and uses every trick up her sleeve to completely wipe out the castle of Yoshitatsu's forces. The castle was free to capture, but Saru instead takes Hanbei out for medication, and after recovering, Hanbei appreciates Saru's kind nature and joins the Oda clan, but instead of following Nobuna, she swears loyalty to Saru. Now with Hanbei on the team, the next objective standing in Nobuna's way of conquering the Mino region was to get a hold of the land of Tsunomata. Tsunomata was a decisive point, and to conquer it, Nobuna switches things up and sends Katsuie instead of Saru. Katsuie ends up not making any progress in that region, and with Yoshitatsu plotting another attack, Saru reaches out to Nobuna and convinces her to let him help out. As Nobuna accepts, Saru uses his foreknowledge and he comes up with a decoy plan. Saru tells Nobuna to leave for the land of Kisogawa as a decoy, while he will head over to their actual target, Tsunomata. The goal here was to stay low-key and build a makeshift fort overnight, and even though Nobuna wasn't confident about this risky plan, she did as Saru told her. Nobuna was in a valley when Yoshitatsu made his move, and he kept Nobuna inside that valley until his men could set the placed explosives off. Yoshitatsu did manage to hold Nobuna for some time, but his plan worked against them, especially when his men who were in that valley felt betrayed. Saru, on the other hand, succeeds in building the fort he planned, and now all they had to do was to wait while Nobuna makes it back to them with her full army. Saru's battle was a little rough, as he almost lost Goemon in there, but luckily for him, Nobuna made it to Tsunomata just in time with Yoshitatsu's ditched troops alongside her. With the help of Saru's foreknowledge and Nobuna's leadership, the Oda clan succeeded in conquering Mino back. Yoshitatsu was captured by the Oda clan as well, but instead of killing him, Nobuna ends up sparing him for Dosan, even though she made a new enemy for herself. The infamous castle of Mino was named Gifu Castle now, and at the end of the day, Saru also manages to open Dosan's eyes to see how at this point of her life, he's almost Nobuna's stepfather. After strengthening her previous territory, Nobuna's next target was now Kyoto. During the current Sengoku period, Kyoto was in a pretty bad place, and it was almost covered in red flames. The Miyoshi III were expanding their forces around Kyoto, and that led to the shoguns of the region getting attacked. The city was almost under a civil war. Back at the Oda clan's base, Saru was explaining how things would play out from now according to his knowledge, but he gets a bit disappointed when he came to know how wrong he was this time around. As a plan B, Akechi suggested that the Oda should march forward to Tokyo, and after claiming the territory, they should use Imagawa as the new shogun. The rest of the generals like the proposition, and they start preparing to leave right away. The preparation is disturbed when Nagamasa arrives to bother Nobuna again, but this time around he had nothing to leverage. Nagamasa ends up begging for a girl he can get married to, and after seeing the man being so respectful, Nobuna lets him marry his little sister Oichi. Later, it turns out that Oichi was Nobusumi in disguise, but with this, at least Nobuna got rid of Nagamasa for the time being. The march begins, and Nobuna's army keeps conquering castle after castle that stands in their way. As the army was close to approaching Kyoto, Saru was sent with a few generals to scout the area ahead. Saru was already disappointed at the deserted state of this beautiful city when he notices that bandits are active in town as well. Saru forms teams and heads on over to look for the local empress named Himiko. On his way to look for Himiko, Saru's team saves the shrine princess while assuming that she is just a normal girl, and later on they encounter some foreigners being attacked by bandits. Saru and the company jump in to save the two, and the foreigners introduce themselves as Bonten Maru and Louis Frios from Portugal. Outside town, Nobuna had made crazy progress by now, and only a single castle was left for her to conquer Kyoto as well. Nobuna sends a request to surrender towards the last castle as she didn't want any unnecessary bloodshed, but the Miyoshi III didn't seem to have the same philosophy on life. The Miyoshi III had allied a lot of people in order to stop Nobuna's conquest from progressing, and they even went as far as letting a masked man join in, who most probably was Yoshitatsu filled with vengeance. Saru also continued his tour around town with Himiko, and on their way, a woman named Danjo puts everyone but Himiko to sleep with her magic. Danjo demanded Himiko return to her temple, and the princess agreed, convincing Danjo to spare the lives of Saru and his friends. Saru said goodbye to Himiko after dropping her at her temple, and real soon Kyoto was under the control of the Oda clan, as Nobuna's army had arrived. Nobuna took charge of the city to put things into order, and while she and Saru were happy with their progress, it was clear as day that this was only the beginning of their epic journey to make this nation peaceful again. And that brings us to the end of today's recap. Thanks for sticking till the end, and let us know which show you want to see recap next down in the comments. Don't forget to leave us a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.